Yep.
Hello and welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and I'm here with Anthony Marquetta with our very special stream, our very special night. It is the Jojolion stream, the last Jojolion stream. How's it feel?
How's it
And I'm
feel?
here with Anthony Marquetta.
Well, I just had. How it feels is that I just hit play on my phone on the live stream and heard your voice come out of it for a second. By the way,
Terrifying.
sounds clear.
Oh, good.
Uh, anyway, no, I've been so. Here's the behind the scenes for everybody listening of the JoJo streams. There was a point after like our first, I don't know, I want to say like couple months of episodes, maybe. I'm just estimating that we realized we like had a behind the scenes talk and we decided we were talking about JoJo too much. That and My Hero Academia. So we intentionally made the effort to say we will have, if we want to talk about them, we'll have separate streams about them, which we've had, and otherwise we're going to try and only mention it briefly. So we have been dying to talk about Jojolion for a while, or at least I have, and Ben knows that I have because I've been bitching about Jojolion for several months now.
Years.
Uh,
It's been years. Don't even
for
pretend.
years, yeah. So I am looking forward to the JoJo stream. Believe me, in that we could discuss this every week. There is enough content to do it, but we've been holding back. But it all comes out today.
It all
So
ends today. Dun dun
tech
dun.
don't
These
get me wrong, this is not the last JoJo stream because part 9 is the last Jojolion stream. Because
specifically.
part 9 is confirmed,
Woo! Do
which
we?
I'm very, very happy about. So, with all my bitching, I am extremely, extremely happy part 9 is confirmed.
Yeah, and it's called JoJo Land. We know nothing about it, and we're not going to do any sort of like, oh, what do we know? Blah 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 stream. We're gonna save it. Try not to have more than one JoJo Land stream a year until something interesting happens. And by interesting, I mean I hope Araki gets an editor with some testicular fortitude.
Yes. So, let's start the final Jojolion stream with this. Did you like the ending?
I like the ending.
I would say I as far as Jojolion goes, I'm as satisfied as I was ever going to be. Uh, I didn't really like the direction that the story was going for a while, but all things considered, I think he ended it well. Megabuster Shepherd says, I still haven't seen Stone Ocean. Nobody has. It's not out yet. Read the manga. Uh,
The manga is actually really good.
it is, yes.
Like it is, despite our many enjoyments of the anime, the manga is the ideal situation to watch JoJo in. Yes.
I don't know if I'd agree with that for all of them.
So part two accepted.
I part 2, and I know that Eye Patch Wolf. I can't confirm that. Eye Patch Wolf was arguing that part 5 was better as an anime. And
Mm.
his argument was that King Crimson in manga form was really difficult to understand because you can't really convey cutting out pieces of time when time is not flowing in a manga. You're seeing panels, it's already being cut.
Yes. Okay. I can see that. I mean, I don't know what like I don't,
I have the hiccups, so that's annoying.
I didn't have a problem with King Crimson's ability compared to other people, just because it's like, of course, it's like snipping out the tape of a VCR, because Araki talks about modern technology that will be in no way obsolete in 10 years. Oh, no siree. He does not.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
I mean, part 6 is all about CDs uh, controlling people and such like that, having their personalities and their stands in a removable CD-ROM that he can take out of the head. Why? Because Araki saw a tech commercial or something and thought, hey, that's pretty sweet. Which is actually a
Um,
pretty Chad way to do anything.
so the one thing about part 6 I'm very my hiccups are really annoying. That I am very much looking forward to is I want to see how they do that scene where Weather Report makes it rain snails, and then they all start turning into giant snails. But then Kyuchi manages to fight him by removing his own eyesight.
Into a
Because
CD-ROM.
everything, yeah, because everything about that chain of events is like, I don't even know. It is completely nonsensical. It, I legitimately believe this is the single most nonsensical fight in JoJo. Weather Report making it rain snails, that I can buy. Because Araki is right. Like, there are some examples of times where animals have rained from the sky. You could read accounts of it. Like, he did not make that up. So, okay. I'll buy that. Why does it raining snails make you turn into a snail?
Well, you see, he was
What's the
hypnotizing
connection?
people. He was hypnotizing people, Anthony. It was
And
hypnotism.
why does going blind make it so that you can't turn into a snail?
Anthony.
What is the connection between eyesight and turning into a snail because it rains snails? It made absolutely no sense. I remember reading that section and like contacting you and going, Ben, explain this.
And
And you
I
said,
did.
your response was, it makes perfect sense and you know it. Which, yes. Now, with that said, so going back to Jojolion. As far as the final chapter goes, ugh, hiccups. As far as the final
So,
chapter
expand
goes,
out your belly and fill your diaphragm. Your lungs. You want to get that full, like you're puffing up
bleh.
like a toad that's been threatened, like a bullfrog named Jeremiah. You're just puffing out. You're going.
I'm just gonna grab my gigantic jug of water, which is
Yeah.
now famous due to YouTube comments.
I'm here with my jug of water named Sally.
No, I should give it a name though.
I'm strongly considering weaning myself off of tap water, but I don't know if I really want to.
I don't know. Well, that was a completely pointless tangent. Anyway, back to Jojolion. Uh, I think that one might take the record as the most pointless tangent we've ever gone on.
Except this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the cabal of doctors who are trying to use the rokakaka fruit to make immense amounts of money. Because this is a medical condition.
Alright, so here's the first thing with the Rokakaka stuff and the rock humans. As far as I can see, the rock humans get shit done, don't they?
They do.
Like, the rock humans created a medicine that can heal anything, including death. Megabuster Shepard says, sorry guys, it cut me out for a second. Megabuster Shepard, you literally missed nothing. Don't worry, you're good.
The
Anyway,
most pointless digression was saved because somebody cut out. It's like, haha.
Yeah, don't worry, it's fine. Anyway, so the rock humans in JoJo. So, all right, so I'm trying to think of where to start the Jojolion discussion. How about we start it like this? Describe the plot of Jojolion. How would you describe the story?
Oh, pretty simple. Uh, there's this guy called we'll call him Gappy because there's another JoJo character with the name of Josuke, and we don't want to confuse people too much. And well, let's just how do I want to put this? He's the merging of a former villain from Part 4 and the hero from Part 4 together in a sort of like spiritual voodoo dance that creates the same person with no memories. He's freed by
Hirose.
Hirose, who is actually an S tier Jobro, Joseph, whatever. Uh, they.
Would you put her as S tier?
I would.
I would think she's more A tier.
So there's a couple of reasons why she's S tier rather than A tier, and we'll get back to the main plot line, which I assure you is completely understandable. Is that she survives? How about that?
I mean, so does Okuyasu.
He doesn't.
What? You mean he dies for a moment and then comes back to life?
He is technically dead. Therefore, my point stands. Anyway, so she's S tier to me, and it's a combination of loyalty, friendship, and their relationship, which is probably the sweetest and wholesome relationship in all of JoJo, which is saying something actually.
It's an adorable relationship. If it looks to me like it looks in story like it's very healthy for both of them.
Yep.
Like both of them they genuinely seem to appreciate the other person. Gappy is honestly like a gentleman when it comes to Yasuho, but with nobody else.
Right.
Like one of the interesting character traits of Gappy is that he is an utterly ruthless that, not like how Dio was violent. He's not casually violent. He's not violent where like, oh, he could snap at any time and just kill you. But Gappy is willing to inflict violence to get what he wants. Like, and he does not regret it, right?
Right.
But he'll spare Yasuho the sight of it if he can. And very casually.
Yep.
It's a very... I like their relationship a lot.
I'm fighting a boss here real quick. So the plot. Ooh, how do we get back to the plot? So there's this dude called Gappy who we don't know who he's the combination of several people to begin with. And remember that JoJo started out as mystery and horror. So that's in there pretty much all the time. Don't ever forget about that horror feel.
Oh, part 1 is a straight up horror story. Part 2 as well, I would say. It's really only in part 3 where we get away from that, honestly.
And even then, there's still strong elements of it that.
Yeah, there is. But like part 1, I would say is straight up a horror manga.
Right.
And part 2, I think, is also I would also call a horror manga, I think. At the very least, the horror elements in part 2 are very, very strong. Part 3, I would say, is more of an adventure manga with horror elements, and then that sort of becomes the direction that JoJo goes, less horror and more adventure with horror elements.
Right.
Havocbringer says, hi there, what's up? We're discussing Jojolion.
It's our favorite sport.
It is. Anyway, you were going on. They find somebody buried in the ground, and his name is Gappy. His real name is Josuke Higashikata. He is named by the girl who finds him, Yasuho. She names him after her dog, adopted by the Higashikata family. So he's Josuke Higashikata. But we're going to call him Gappy. Havigringer says, "Why in the world am I unable to find the last Jojolion chapter online? Because you're very bad at looking. I found it with almost no effort. Uh,
Manifests.
I I legitimately am confused as to how you can't find it. Like, it's everywhere. It is very not hard to find.
No, no.
I'm
Sailing the
being
high
mean. I know.
sailing the high seas is an art that must be acquired over long periods and voyages, and many different how do I want to call that, sufferings of scurvy.
That's
Pro
a good way of putting it.
pro gamer move, getting scurvy because that's what we call a pro gamer move. I hate that meme.
Exactly.
I hate that meme so much.
The pro gamer meme.
Yeah, like it just.
I think it's a good meme. Solid if it's used right.
Anyway, so he goes on a quest to figure out who he is, and through the process of it, he gets attacked by stands, and this is kind of like the first 10, 20, 30 chapters of 110 chapters or so. And it goes on a little longer, but so like there's two
Yeah,
parts to it. There's up to the Damo Tamaki fight, and then after the Damo Tamaki fight, but that's neither here nor there. In the meantime, he discovers that rock humans are doing some. I can't actually remember how he discovers the rock humans. He joins in the Higashikata household. He discovers a dude who his previous self had made chew off his own fingers by asking him a pertinent philosophical question. Um, which isn't even that's not even an exaggeration. He asks him, "Are you a man of the sea or a man of the land?" And the dude chews off his fingers. I don't know. I don't know, but that's okay.
yeah, so here's what the Jojolion wiki says. Sasame tells of a psychopathic Kira who in the past by an obscure power and for little reason convinced Sasame to eat his own fingers. That's it. That's all it
That's
says.
all it says. That's all
He's
it needs
just
to say.
and the reason that Kira did it is because he's a weirdo. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep. Anyway, so ignoring that, he and Yasuho, uh, well, he gets adopted by the Higashikatas, and then they're attacked by their 16-year-old daughter, who has the power that anyone who cares about her, uh, she can steal their memories if she wants. Yep. But the point of the arc
Yeah,
is discovering that he might be their relation, like a third cousin or something like that. But like, yeah,
Daya's a weirdo, alright.
Daya's a weirdo. That's her power ability. Anyone who cares for her, she gets the option to rip out a memory. Ah. So then he discovers that he might have a mother in the hospital. So he goes after her, only to be attacked by Born This Way or Going Underground, depending on what translation you're reading. Going underground has the ability that every time you open a door, you are run over by a motorcyclist. Yeah,
That was a pretty good fight, by the way.
it was actually a good fight. Like we're being sarcastic with this stuff, but the fights are actually really good sometimes.
Alright, so in Jojolion, the consensus of like the long-term JoJo fans is that starting with the Steel Ball Run
Please,
first, the stand battles got way better.
the JoJo
The Jo
intellectuals, the
yeah.
JoJo intellectuals.
The consensus seems to be that once we hit the Steel Ball Run verse, the battles got like way better. Just a lot more strategic. I don't know if I agree with that as a blanket statement, but I've heard it said often enough
See,
that Like,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I just see the thing is they say that, but I actually kind of hate most of the early fights in Part 7, like the Crow one, the Tomb of the Boom. Um,
See, I don't even remember either of those fights.
yeah, right.
On the other hand, though, I do remember several fights in Part 7. Like, Scary Monsters is one of my all-time favorite stands, honestly, because it's so weird
And then
and
Dio
it's
was a
so cool.
dinosaur, and he turned other people into dinosaurs.
It sounds like something a 5-year-old would come up with, but then also once you do it, you realize it's actually awesome.
Right? Or
Like,
there's that one scene where
uh,
Dio turns in some security guards into decorative dinosaur lamps because, yes, that's included in his power to turn people into dinosaurs.
yeah. So, Scary Monsters and it was a pretty good fight, and it's a great stand ability. Uh, what was the other one? What was the fight where they're inside of a tree and there's like gambling
Oh,
involved and
Sugar
there was a
Mountain
kid.
Spring?
Yeah, thank you. Sugar Mountain Spring was pretty decent. Of course, the Ringo Road Again fight is probably like in one of the most famous fights in Steel Ball Run,
It's one of the most
and it
famous
is,
fights, period. Like, it is.
yeah, it is indeed an excellent fight. I know you weren't a fan of it, but I loved Civil War. I thought that was a great fight.
It was too
Uh,
complicated for me to really enjoy it.
I thought it did really well hitting the emotional beats, and also this wasn't exactly a fight, but like the James Bond-esque sequence where Lucy uses Hot Pants' ability to infiltrate Valentine's house is actually a fantastic chapter.
Hmm.
Like it's not exactly a fight, but it's like this very James Bond-esque sequence where Lucy goes undercover as Valentine's wife and like tries to infiltrate his house. It's fantastic. Uh,
Yeah, but she gets, what's his name? Lonesome Me killed. I didn't like that. That felt weird.
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, he's killed
Uh,
by Blackmore with his Chase the Rainbow power, which makes him essentially God within the confines of a thunderstorm, of a rainstorm. So he gets shot several times, and he's like, "I'm not. I will live until the rain ends." And then he goes off and does things, and they're fighting over the corpse of Jesus Christ. All right, wait, hold on. We're getting away from Jojolion. Let us get back to Jojolion so we can explain what the plot is.
so in Jojolion, the best fight in all of Jojolion, and I think everybody agrees with this, by the way. I do not think I am alone in saying this, is the Stag Beetle battle.
Yes.
That's certainly the most famous fight in Jojolion. And the reason that fight is so great is because it's so weird and random. It kind of exemplifies Jojolion. Like, there's something about it. It's extremely uh I guess it's just extremely strange is the best way to put it. So this is the first time we see the character we really see, I should say. Like we really get a good look at the character of Jobin. It's at this point in the story where Jobin is being set up as a potential villain because he figures out very quickly that Josuke is cheating and he is not happy about it, but he also can't prove it. And also, he's been cheating the entire time too, anyway. So it's not like he can really complain, but he does.
But the best
So,
part of all is that his stand ability can make something a couple of centigrade hotter.
yeah, and Jobin's stand ability is that he could superheat one very small part of an object, and his stand ability is actually terrifying. Like, Araki legitimately makes this ability terrifying.
Yes. Keep in mind, he uses the same trick several times, but he does it so well you just don't care.
So, Jobin, too, like, honestly, here's another reason that, and we'll get to this later, but here's another reason I think should have been the villain. Jobin was in how many major fights? 2. The Stag Beetle battle, if you count that as a fight, which I will.
Yeah.
The Stag Beetle battle and the fight with, I can't remember his name, but the dude who tries to blackmail them and injures
Ojiro?
Tsurugi. Ojiro, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were probably like my 2 favorite fights in all of Jojolion, and they both involved Jobin.
Yeah, the
But
Ojiro fight is pretty dramatic.
it's pretty great. It's pretty great, and also the fight, it's just a really well done fight. Like the way that I think they utilize everybody's powers really well. Like, because Tsurugi also takes part in the fight, and I think they utilize Tsurugi's powers really well. And it's also like a very tactical fight,
Yeah.
which is when JoJo is at its best. I think that's one of the reasons that everybody loves the final Kira battle in part 4 is because it's a very tactical battle, and all of the best fights in Jojolion definitely have that as a part of it. So we're at the point. The reason that we're going all over the place, because the plot at this point is kind of meandering. Josuke is introduced after Josuke is discovered by Yasuho and he fights the first villain. He learns he is the combination of Yoshikage Kira, a psychopath, and Josefumi Kujo, a random dude who is not at all interesting. I don't really know how else to put it because I don't remember anything about him.
He was
As
saved
far
by
as
Holly once.
there you go. So Josefumi Kujo, and Josuke is actually the combination of those 2 dudes who died. Josefumi died in an earthquake, but was given a magical fruit that combined his body with Yoshikage Kira's body and revived him, but without his memories. He became Josuke Higashikata, the man from the soil, as the manga eventually calls him. So we learn all of this slowly as he is introduced. He is adopted by a man named Norisuke Higashihara, the patriarch of a fruit sales empire, well respected. And he is introduced one by one to the rest of the Higashikata family. They adopt Josuke purely out of the kindness of their heart. As far as I recall, there was literally no other reason. Norisuke just felt bad for him.
Yep.
He might have given like a direct explanation, but that was pretty much it. Yeah, Norisuke just pitied him and he saw him there and he said, I'll adopt him. So he's introduced the Higashikata family and has 1 battles with each member of the family. They're okay. Yeah.
So he fights Joshu, kind of, and Daya,
And Gaia.
and I don't think he really fights.
He sort of fights Jobin, and he has the Stag Beetle fight with Jobin.
Right. And
But that was to gain information, wasn't it? Wasn't he looking for something at the time?
yeah, his stand ability.
I'm trying to look up the Stag Beetle fight to see if it says like why he was taking part in the fight.
It was to find out the dude's ability, and as well as answer some questions, because Tsurugi had said something suspicious, and let's have a stag beetle fight because Araki read a Snapple cap about stag beetles.
They do have the one. They do have the one scene where Tsurugi, whose stand ability is Paper Moon King, randomly and for no reason decides he is going to prank Yasuho by making everybody's faces look the same. And the chapter, to my recollection, is honestly terrifying. And then it just kind of ends with Tsurugi going, "Surprise! I got you." And Yasuho is just like, "What?" Like, I'm just imagining, Yasuho is on the ground in tears. Her entire reality has been shattered. She can't tell people apart. And then Tsurugi's going, "Oh man, what an epic prank."
we can't exaggerate it. That's what happens. He was like playing a game with her or something. And keep in
Yeah,
mind, this is all while Tsurugi is dressed up like a girl to avoid the curse that kills Higashikata males when they're 10 years old, unless one of their own sacrifices themselves for him.
sacrifices themselves.
Yep.
Yeah, so Tsurugi's terrifying stand ability that makes it so that you cannot distinguish between faces. He just decides for no reason to use it on Yasuho as a joke. And I want to be clear too. Tsurugi is not being mean here. It's not like he's not doing it maliciously. He just thinks it's funny.
Yasuho
And
is a
meanwhile,
trooper, though.
Yasuho is like, what was that?
She's such a trooper, though.
And Yasuho was just like going through her day, slowly losing her as like she can't distinguish faces and reality around her. And Tsurugi's just like, surprise, you. And then Yasuho just kind of takes it. She's just like, all right, whatever.
She's a doormat, though. That's the thing.
She is a doormat. Poor Yasuho. She's a doormat, but you root for her.
Right.
Because she's a very reliable gal.
It's one of those things where, like, if Yasuho wasn't there, just because of what she does in the plot, which, by the way, we haven't even gotten past the first half with all this nonsense. I think Jojolion...
Which is kind of the problem, FYI, but...
oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. So, after they beat up on the members of the family who are gaslighting them and or trying to kill them for a healthy prank, bro, they then come across the members of the Rokakaka gang, I guess we'll say, whose goal is to make ludicrous amounts of money. How ludicrous? Exactly $200 million. Where they got that number, I don't actually know. But they all say it. They all agree with it. That $200 million sounds great.
I mean, it does.
I mean, it does. Well, 200 million yen. I should be specific. Something.
So 200 million yen is quite a lot less than $200 million, but it's enough to make you pretty rich, so whatever.
Yep. And, you know, like, we're talking about this stuff rather flippantly, but, like, how else can you describe some of this nonsense? It gets weird, and it gets, like, complex, when it doesn't really need to be as complex as Araki makes it. And it's just, like,
Right.
You know.
So, I'm going to give my thesis that I gave to you earlier, and I am going to give it now. So, my thesis with Jojolion, I'm going to lay my cards on the table on what I think of the story. I do not think that Araki had a plot in mind. Like, I do not think he had an idea of where the story was going to go. I think he knew what Josuke's character was. I think he knew about the rock humans. I think he knew about the Rokakaka. But I do not think... And he knew that it was about, it started off with, he knew about the curse on Tsurugi and that it had to do with the Rokakaka. But I do not think he had any idea how he was going to bring these elements together into a story. So he was just making it up as he went along. And
Yep.
I don't think it works that great. I don't think the plot really works.
Yep. And you see how much trouble we have describing the plot, and it's like, come on, it's a JoJo plot. It's supposed to be simple, or you're supposed to be able to just describe it. Sure, it's about some dude getting his memories back. Except he never gets his memories back. Everything he goes for disappears. And the final villain is an utter disappointment who doesn't show up until the last third of the story, which is entirely their one fight against him and his little rock human pets. And no.
And to be clear, we say all of this, but to be fair to Jojolion, it's not like that fight was itself bad, right?
Right.
It's just that it was so long, more than anything. like it eventually got kind of old that it was all one fight. But there were individual moments in it that were honestly pretty great.
Yeah, like absolutely. The
And
biggest one that we both agree on is when Holly Joestar, who has been comatose and like crazy all this time, comes out perfectly sane, saves her son Merge Half Thing's life, and then immediately returns to the coma from whence she came,
yeah, so
and it makes
I'll
perfect
explain
sense
it.
in story.
It does. This is probably my favorite scene, like, and it's not a full fight or anything, so, but it's my favorite individual scene in Jojolion. So, our JoJo, Gappy, is really badly injured, and his mother, the mother, I should say, of Yoshikage Kira, who is half of Gappy's DNA, is in the hospital. And when she sees, and she is dying slowly, but rapidly, the speed is rapidly increasing. When she sees Gappy and she sees that he is badly injured, she gets up and gives him some of the extremely expensive and rare medicine to save his life. And that is like the main focus of the plot, by the way.
Oh,
Uh,
and don't forget all the Mary symbology that is literally dripping off her every time she shows up on camera.
oh, yeah, that too. There's like Virgin Mary symbolism dripping off her. So after she does this, and even though she's not fully in her right mind, she can recognize that this person this is her son, right? Yoshikage Kira,
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks she's dead, but she knows it's him in front of her. And Gappy is so touched by this act of kindness and self sacrifice and by the love of a mother for her son that he declares in my favorite monologue in Jojolion and one of my favorite monologues in all of JoJo that he doesn't care that he doesn't have his memories. He doesn't care, and he might not remember anything from his old life, but he does understand one thing, that she is his mother and he is her son, and he vows that he will take care of her, which he completely and totally fails to do. He is absolute total failure. Wipeout. Just he lets her down bad, but whatever. It's still a good moment.
Yep. Like it's one of those things where it's not like malicious. It's just, you know, the things
He
happen.
tried to save her and it didn't work.
Yep. Hmm. I wish there was something better to say about that, but no, it's just exactly how it is. And it's a pity because Holly is a fantastic character. Gappy is a pretty good character, and throughout all the fights of the 110 chapter run, which took about what 12 years, 12
Yeah,
years.
over a decade.
Yep, like there's ups and downs and all that good stuff, and it just really needed an editor or an editor who would be willing to stand up to Araki. Like I,
So
you
the
know,
most egregious part of this, like the most egregious thing that Joe Jolian did, and I think everybody would agree with this. I have seen people like X Forts. For people who don't know, X Forts is a Joe Jolian. He's like a JoJo YouTuber. I like him.
JoJo
You know,
intellectual.
yes, exactly. Uh, honestly, I like X Quartz. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing shade at the dude. He seems like he's having a good time with it. Whatever, right?
His shirts are
But he
so
was
cool.
like, he does have the copium a little bit. I think with Joe Jolian, uh,
Yep.
it's subtle. It's not like it's not really bad, but there's a little bit. He huffs the copium a little bit. And one of the big ones is that there is a scene, and the JoJo fan base went nuts over this scene. Like there were whole videos that were specifically about analyzing this scene. Like 20, 30-minute videos. You know, there was like a community based around it where we see a flash forward and there's a timer showing us like when this takes place, and we see one of the characters is dead, the family's in tears, everybody is freaking out. So this is something we are told, we see the scene with a timer, we are told it's going to happen. Araki goes out of his way to show us this, he makes a big deal of it, right?
Yep.
It never happens. It just doesn't happen. Not like it's
It
as if
doesn't
that scene
matter
was
as
not in
much.
there.
Like the problem is that it does kind of happen. To be fair to Araki, enough of it happens that it matters. The problem is that, how do I want to put it?
He clearly changed his mind about the
Right.
direction he was taking the story,
Yep.
but he had already included that scene, so now he was just stuck with it.
Yep. And there's it's hard for us to say it because it's kind of a meta problem, not a story problem. Like the story is fine, it works. Like the problem isn't with any of the individual actions taken. The problem is in how Araki interacted with the story and worked through the things that he had set up for his characters. Because instead of having you know a scene where Josuke finally hits the head doctor, whose ability, by the way, is pretty wild. It's the ability to bring calamity on anyone and everyone who pursues him, including collateral damage. It's a pretty crazy, it's a pretty OP ability, and it's honestly in different contexts might actually be fitting for a JoJo villain. The problem is that it wasn't set up well enough. Like Toru, who is the wielder, doesn't show up for quite some time. He doesn't really show up until like chapter 70 or something like that. Like it's really tacked on there, and you can't help but feel that it was tacked on too.
So she first meets, according to the Jojolion wiki, she first meets Toru during the fight with Tamaki.
Oh
Like
wow.
I'll read what it says. For her part, Yasuo is already headed to Yasuo sees Mitsuba Higashikata with a physician, Dr. Wu Tamaki, and discovers that he too is dealing the Lokakaka to Mitsuba as a form of beauty treatment.
Oh yeah, Wu
Tamaki,
Tamaki. Not I thought you said Damo Tamaki for a second.
no. Tamaki, who can turn into dust thanks to his ability, Dr. Wu, attacks Yasuo, but Mitsuba intervenes with her stand, awaking three leaves.
Which
Realizing she
is
doesn't
a
remember.
really cool stand.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, realizing she doesn't remember how she is treated and determined to save her unborn baby from equivalent exchange. And during the fight, Yasuo incidentally meets Toru, her ex-boyfriend. So here's the thing. Ben remembers this, I know. When we were reading Jojolion, it was an open question for a shockingly long time if Toru was even a villain. Like,
Yes.
there was serious debate on the subject. Is Toru a villain, or is he just a guy who Josuke doesn't like because he has a thing for Josuke's girl? Right?
Right.
Like, which is a perfectly plausible way for the story to go, and honestly, it would have worked as a red herring. I wouldn't have necessarily hated that if Toru ended up being a neutral or positive character, right? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. But that's not the way the story goes. Eventually, Toru is revealed to not only be a villain, he is the villain. And you could almost see, like, in real time, the reaction of. There was kind of disbelief.
Right.
Like, they were pretty annoyed.
Right.
Because it was like, wait a minute, is this it? Is this guy actually the final villain? This guy.
The pretty
Like,
boy. The guy with the
yeah,
afro with like things stuck in it, who hasn't made any attempts to fight the heroes or to interact with them at all until the last
yeah.
second.
who has no connection with the Higashikata family, no connection with Josuke. The
So
only person he has a connection with is Yasuho, and the connection is a complete coincidence and honestly pretty lame.
they used to be dating.
Yeah, they were dating once upon a time because Yasuho dates because Yasuho will date anyone because she has severe daddy issues.
Her daddy abandoned her. Those are the daddy issues. And her mom is an absolutely horrible person. Like legitimately, compared to some of the things you see in these days, hers are a little bit more earned, and she's handling them better than some people might. But still,
Well, she found Gappy. Gappy treats her like a queen. She
yep,
deserves it because Yasuho is great. She is a doormat, but she's also a badass at the same time. I don't know how Araki pulled that off, but he did.
yep. And it's like,
Paisley Park is one of my all-time favorite stand designs. It's up there with Stone Free on the all-time greats list.
and she's still not S tier to you.
Um, no, I actually still wouldn't put her in the S tier.
Mm-mm-mm.
Here's the thing: the S tier JoJos, I
Feel
think
gross.
I'm trying to think of how to put it exactly. I don't want to say they matter more to their stories because Yasuho plays a huge role in the story, but the flip side too is that Yasuho is like she's almost an outsider to the story who inserts herself in it.
She pulls him from the
Whereas,
ground. She's part of the inciting incident. She was bitten by the possibly zombified corpse of Jesus
okay,
Christ. I'm not even
but here's the
exaggerating.
question. Yeah, you're right. But all right, but here is what I mean by this. And this is not a criticism in a way. It's just the point of like you're asking why she's not S tier. There's nothing wrong with the way Rocky handled her. I think he handled her great, but like if you took Yasuho out of the story could have mostly worked anyway. Somebody else would have had to find Josuke, but he would have ended up with the Higashikadas, and everything that's motivating him, he would have had to find different ways to accomplish it, but he still could have done it. Does that make sense?
Sure, at no point was oh wait, no, you're absolutely wrong. So here's the thing about it. She provides a lot of the information and intel gathering that characters like Joseph Joestar did in part 3 and part 4 kind of.
Well, yeah, Joseph Joestar, you know, he had to use Hermit Purple for it. But that's the thing. Like, I didn't really consider Joseph in his own part an S tier Jobro. He was a lot less interesting in part 3 than he was in part 2.
Yeah, that's because the main JoJo was Jotaro. Like, and Jotaro is, how do I want to put it? He's got his own thing going on. But like, I don't know. She just works. That's the thing. She works for the story, just like Joseph worked for the story in part 3. Like even if they're, it's like the character needed somebody like Yasuho who would be more than willing to be a part of the thing and take some punches and help out, even as she's being drowned in a toilet by her. How do I even want to put this? Like, yeah,
That's one of. Alright, so this is one of the best scenes in the entire manga. In fact, it might be. I know I mentioned the scene with Holly, but this is another contender, at least, for best scene in the whole story. This is in the middle of the final fight of the arc, right? The Wonder of You fight. And Yasuho appears at the Higashikata estate. She is spying on them with her stand, Paisley Park. Paisley Park's ability is that it could travel through electronics, and it just generally helps her with whatever she needs.
yep,
I guess if you're going to give it a specific ability, it's that it can travel through electronics to help her.
yep,
Uh, right? So Paisley Park at one point is in the phone, and Yasuho is watching what happens, and the phone ends up I don't remember if it falls or it's thrown into the toilet by Jobin.
Jobin puts it into the toilet.
So Jobin, who remember at this point still very well looks like he has a shot at being the main villain. In fact, I even remember messaging Ben after this chapter and going, I guess this confirms him as the main villain, because he tries to kill Yasuho.
Right.
He sticks her phone in the toilet. And because it's electricity based, Paisley Park can't work properly in the toilet. And the water starts to travel from Paisley Park to Yasuho, and Yasuho starts to drown. And there is this incredible scene where Mitsuba, who is Jobin's wife, finds the phone in the toilet, recognizes Paisley Park, realizes that Yasuho is drowning. Yasuho begs for help, and then Jobin shows up and goes, "Don't touch it. Just leave her there." And Mitsuba's like, "Are you serious? You can't, like that's horrible." And Jobin is like, "No, listen to me. I can stop the curse. I can save Tsurugi. I can do this, but we need to be a united front. Do not help her." And it's honestly like a bone-chilling scene where Yasuho is there like begging Mitsuba for help, and Mitsuba just stares between the two of them, then closes the lid of the toilet, and the chapter ends. It's such a fantastic cliffhanger. Like, it really is. It's so good. And the way it's resolved works. Jobin shows up and saves her and whatever.
Yeah.
So the follow up works and all, but that chapter on its own is like a tension masterclass. And honestly, if you really want to know why I think Jobin should be the villain, it's that chapter. I think that kind of proved that he really did have the potential.
Yep.
Like he had the presence for it.
Yep. Like it's one of those things where like you see where the genius is, and there is like genuine genius here, but then it's like, oh, we're going to reset a fight chapter, which honestly, now that I've reread it for this stream, isn't as bad as everyone says. It just felt bad because we had to wait 2 months for it. Like it's like obladi oblada. And may the Lord forgive me for saying the name of a Beatles song. Isn't that crazy of a ability or a thing to do? Of course, a man as careful as Toru would have some BS um, escape plan planned up, just because he's that sort of guy. He's been established as that sort of guy, and you know
I will say that the climax of the fight is completely insane and in mostly a good way. A plane is falling out of the sky. It is literally inches away from Yasuho's head. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how close this plane is to Yasuho. She reaches her hand out, touching different distance. I'm pretty sure that Araki actually makes a point of saying that, like, she is seconds away from death. Less than a second from death, he might have even said. And Gappy manages to stop the plane by aiming the super bubble, his soft and wet go beyond bubble, from his star-shaped birthmark, shooting it out to a phone, and then Paisley Park grabs the bubble and travels with it faster than the speed of light, or sound, or whatever, to the plane, and blows the plane up inches from Yasuho's face.
no, they don't do that. So it smashes into Toru. She does that, but what she does is actually she throws it at she guides it into Toru, who loses control of his
Oh
stand
yeah, you're
because
right.
he
I'm
is
sorry. He
mortally
doesn't
wounded.
shoot. You're right. He doesn't shoot the plane. He shoots Toru.
And
It's
so
still an insane moment.
it is, because then we get like 3 pages of the airplane piece just tearing through the Higashikata Manor, just wrecking their house. It's it's a pretty great scene.
Yeah, honestly, it is pretty good. Uh, So for all of my criticism of it, it is pretty good. Uh, I thought that the solution that they came for defeating Toru, that Kato shows up and uses equivalent exchange between Toru and Tsurugi, I thought that worked pretty well.
Yep.
Like, I was satisfied with that ending. You know, like, that's the thing, though. Like, as I'm talking about individual moments of it, these plot points, and I don't hate any of them. You know, it's like the climax of the fight. It was pretty good, honestly. You
Yep.
know, I was entertained. The way that they resolved the main curse plotline, it was pretty good. I was pretty satisfied with it.
Yep.
Like the final scene of the manga where, Josuke is accepted by the Higashikatas and he finally has a family and people who love him. It was pretty touching. I liked it. I thought it was good. Like, the story isn't totally broken.
Right.
It's just like it's so badly needed an editor. Megabuster Shepherd says, where is it? So, in your opinion, did Araki go on too long? And I'm not sure if too long is exactly right. Like, yes and no. I don't know if it would have been better if it ended sooner, so much as it would have been better if it was just paced better. Like,
Yeah.
if it was just organized better, if there was more of a drive to it.
So.
And
Mm,
I will also be fair here and say that with part 9 coming, there is a chance that a lot of unanswered questions of part 8 will be answered in part 9. There's an equal chance that they will all be completely ignored. They'll do something totally different, which would honestly be fine. But,
it's
we'll
to.
see.
It would be to character.
It would be.
So the thing with that, because since I just reread it, it's that the parts are actually a lot better than I thought. I think the Blue Hawaii fight goes on too long, and the Wonder of You and Endless Calamity fights kind of go on a little too long. And even though there are some pretty great hype moments, and the fight with like um, Damo Tamaki, the Aphex brothers, uh, and a few other ones. Not the Aphex brothers really. I just kind of like them personally. Where they just absolute high points, and the moments with like Holly showing up, with all this stuff showing up. Hey, they're great. They're truly great writing. And honestly, if I didn't have to wait a month in skipping 2 months a year for every chapter, it wouldn't be that bad. But quite frankly, when you're waiting for 2 months between episodes, I think, yeah, for one of the most important chapters, it was like a 2 month gap because he had a health thing, and then it was just one of their free months because they get like 2 free months where there's no magazine that it comes in.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. It was so frustrating. So you've got a weak, passive main villain who's being fought by this main character, and it's hyping up to something, and then the chapter ends more or less where it began. And you just feel bad. It doesn't matter what happens around it or what actions it takes if your character is literally in the same spot as he was in the beginning. Even if he's about to fire the true final shot of the series, it just feels bad. I am not going to let anyone do that in Pinkerton's Ghosts. All my characters will advance the plot, even in multi-parters. Like, it doesn't matter what your character really does, he just can't look the same as he did before. And it's like, yeah, but now he's covered by Obladi Oblada. But who
It
cares?
didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything. It didn't
Yeah,
ratchet up
it
the
did
tension.
nothing.
Like, and I guess I'll do this to talk about Toru. Toru's main problem is that he's a passive villain who did not act in the way that he needed to be. Now, ignoring the fact that Araki probably tacked him on, ignoring all the different weird stuff that goes on, you know, as his function is way too passive.
I mean, his
Um,
stand is literally about being passive.
yep, and
Like,
that's just not good enough for a main villain. Like it just doesn't work because then it's like why in the world?
so, yeah, so I'm just gonna say it with Toru. I hate Toru. I absolutely hate the character. I hate that he's the main villain. His stand is powerful and the fight has good moments in it. But as a character, he is not even slightly entertaining. There was never a point where I was intimidated by him. There was never a point where I was entertained by him. There was never a point where I felt, this burning desire to defeat him.
Right.
He is so bad that I honestly like. It is by far the biggest problem with Jojolion is Toru.
Yep.
For all of these other things that we bitch about, like Toru is a legitimate. It's a big problem with the story that he is the villain. Like he irreparably damages the story. So
Yep.
one thing, here's the frustrating part about Toru to me. The frustrating thing is that villains can be difficult. But Araki is really, really, really fantastic at writing villains.
Yep.
Like, he has some of the greatest villains in all of manga. Multiple, not just once. Like, he knows with it.
Yep.
Which is why I am so baffled by, like, what happened here. Like, how did he allow this guy to be the main villain? He's so bad.
Yep.
And Jobin, 100%, I am convinced of this, he should have been the main antagonist.
Yep.
This is a case where a lot of the fan theories I was seeing about it, I honestly think would have ended up being better than what we actually got.
Right.
Like, Jobin as the main antagonist, perfect sense here. So what does Gappy need? Well, Gappy's problem is that Holly is badly ill, and she is his mother, and he wants to save her. The only way to save her is to get the new Rokakaka branch, the special supercharged Rokakaka, that if he gets it, will be able to save even Holly from her illness. Right? Great. There's
Yep.
only one in existence. So, perfect, honestly. Araki sets this up. It's a very clear goal. It is fine. There is no problem with this. What does Jobin want? Jobin has a son who is under a curse. The only thing that can break this curse, and really break it, not just, put it off for another generation, but actually break the curse, is the Rokakaka. Specifically, the new Rokakaka, the special breed version that they've grafted into the plant in the yard. There is only one in existence. It is the same one that Josuke wants, and Jobin absolutely needs it in order to heal Saruki. Great, perfect. Given this setup, wouldn't you think that Jobin was the main villain? Not only that, we get scenes with Jobin that seem to set him up this way. Like, JoJo villains tend to give speeches at some point or another. Diavolo did, Pucci did, Valentine did.
I mean,
All of them.
hold on. I remember Diavolo's speech word for word. He goes, "This is a test to see if I am worthy to be the one chosen by fate." As he's transforming into himself. And it's absolutely dramatic and dark and brooding, and it fits his character.
And to be clear, Diavolo is probably my least favorite villain besides Toru.
Yep.
And this is he's great. There's no problem with him. The reason he's the weakest is because he has the least connection with Giorno. And with, he's just kind of the big bad. But you know what? As a big bad, he's really intimidating. Like, he works very well in the story.
Yeah. He's this weird paranoid mob boss that has people chopped up, put in plexiglass, and then uh, you know, sent to their friends as a warning. Who are your coworkers, by the
It
way?
helps that the Metallica battle is one of my favorite battles in the story.
Oh, absolutely. Like, he even gets a villain on villain fight. Like, that is rare and hard to do.
That's because it was Doppio versus Metallica,
Yep,
but with Diavolo like guiding him
yep,
with with these extremely creepy scenes where he would like talk to himself on a fake phone. It was fantastic though. Like it was truly it set the mood. You know,
yep,
Diavolo is an insane but incredibly threatening mob boss. Right? So this
yep,
is all great. So Jobin seems like the setup is all there.
yep.
He gets his speech earlier in the story,
He
right?
gets multiple
He,
speeches.
and Jobin's speech is, you know, basically something along the lines of there is no good or evil, there is only like
The weak and the strong.
yeah, there's the weak and the strong, and the Higashikata family is going to win. I will ensure that that happens, you know, right?
Yep,
And they're not like I don't think that they're as memorable as some of the best speeches in the other parts, but at least we can understand Jobin's point of view, right? Like
right.
he gets the speech. We see that he can you know he has enough vision to convince other people to join his side. Mitsuba, in one of the most dramatic moments of the part, leaves Yasuho to die because Jobin just has that much conviction in what he's saying. Jobin truly believes it. He really has a point of view. He has a strong motivation. I mean,
Yep,
he's trying to save his son. It's sympathetic, but he's also willing to do absolutely awful things in order to accomplish his goal, including kill innocent people.
yep.
And most importantly, it is on a direct collision course with the same thing that Gappy wants.
Yep.
Everything is there. Why was and oh yeah, just to top it all off, the two major fights that he took part in were two of the best fights in the entire part. Like they just happened to both be extremely entertaining fights.
Yep.
The stag beetle battle and the battle with man, I can't remember his name. The crazy dude who tries to blackmail them.
Right. Ojiro Sasami.
Yeah, Ojiro in the battle with Ojiro. Two two of the best fights in the entire part. It seemed like it was so set up to be Jobin. So why was it not Jobin? I don't understand. I don't get it. Now, I do understand that it could not have ended like other parts ended. Because while Jobin was an antagonist, he was not the villain.
Yep.
Like, he was opposed to Gappy, but there was enough room that probably they could and would have worked something out eventually.
The
But it
the
almost
the plant had two fruits after all.
but like we never even see them try. They never go up against each other directly. After the stag beetle fight, they never fight each other again for the rest of the part. It's
Yep.
such a missed opportunity. It's such a waste. Like I don't get it. I don't know what Araki was doing, and it drives me nuts.
Right. If you're paying attention to Pinkerton's Ghosts, we are setting up rogues galleries, ideas, characters who do it. Like, the puppeteer isn't going to die to like slip on a thing and die to someone else's ability unknown to the hero, unrelated to Jack Morrow entirely. Jack Morrow isn't even in the same like county, and it slips in the bathtub and dies due to unlucky star or whatever. That's not going to happen. Like, that stuff is unsatisfying. You build up heat for a fight. It's like those wrestling terms. You want to build up heat. They show up. They pose at each other. They're weighed in. They make faces at each other, and they say their character things. They have the kayfabe. which is, excellent. And if it's well written, it's done amazingly well. But then it's like, they have to have that fight, and it has to be satisfying. Then you have like in places like Battle Tendency, the fight between Wamu and Joseph is excellent. It's built up, it's hyped up from the beginning, even if not directly. That he's going to have to fight, all the people here, or between Jonathan and Dio, or Dio and Jotaro. Like, it doesn't matter. Araki has shown that he can build up immense hype for a fight, even in parts where it's kind of weak, like part 7. He still built up the hype through other characters, so that even if Johnny
Right. So
Joestar, hold on, even if Johnny Joestar
go ahead.
himself doesn't have a beef in the fight, in fact, that's even part of the last dramatic moment that isn't involved Dio, real Dio, is that he's like, dude, listen, I know that you and me aren't really enemies. I'll bring back Gyro. Just let me go. And it's this dramatic thing. And he almost accepts it until the president, betrays his word. Like, Araki knows how to build up hype and heat and all that stuff, and it just isn't there for Toru. Maybe if Toru was a piece of this thing from the beginning, there might be something there. Even if he was just ancillary to Yasuho and weird things happen around him, that would have built up hype. And then it's like, then they could have crashed their personalities together, as they did. In fact, I would even say that as long as the hype was built up, the fight could have happened exactly how it would have happened in the story, in our reality, and it would have been perfectly fine, and we'd be praising it all 2 hours of our live stream. I'm done. Thank you.
So yeah. So here's the thing with the funny Valentine stuff is that even though Johnny wasn't set up as like a main, as a foil, he wasn't really the foil to Valentine. Exactly, but Valentine himself was very much set up as a villain.
Yep.
He was a present all along. He also had an absolutely awesome fight with Dio and Hot Pants right before that.
Yep.
Which he wins, which also is really good at establishing his bona fide, since both Dio and Hot Pants had already been established as really, really powerful. And he manages to defeat both of them, like, himself.
I don't know about Hot Pants. All she did was get a guy to blow up his own head by blowing too hard on an iron nail. Yes, it makes sense in context.
That's pretty good, though.
I guess.
He also helps Lucy infiltrate, and she nearly gets away with it.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, technically she doesn't, but not really. It's not really Hot Pants' fault that she doesn't.
Yeah, it's true.
But whatever. Not the point. Dio, at least, is like a powerhouse story, so, yeah. That him and Hot Pants have teamed up and he still manages to win does establish the bona fides pretty well.
So the president of the United States bona fides are always established in the story, in universe, even if we might disagree about like Hot Pants or something. There's no Funny Valentine himself isn't the one who has the issues.
No, he is a threat.
Yep. Anyway, so like the threat with Toru is fundamentally passive. It's not some active. As long as I can smash myself in between two enclosed spaces, and as long as I maintain control over the corpse of Jesus Christ, I am invincible. It's like he doesn't even use the Rokakaka himself. Like, it's so...
By the way, we do have a big change here. There is no fucking with time in this part of JoJo as a major part of the story.
Yes, you're right.
For the first time ever.
Yes. But, like, I don't know what it means I don't know what it means. Like,
Well, no, I'm. That's actually not true. It's not the first time ever since stands were introduced.
yeah. So so in the sense of messing with time, um, basically it's been a thing since Dio, and the world, which is to be expected for a stand with time travel powers, uh, with the sexiest vampire ever controlling it. Um, what? Uh,
Of course.
of course. Look at Dio. He's fantastic. He's amazing. Everyone wants Dio, and it um, let's see. No, wait, you're right. Dio. It's always Dio. Dio ruins my point. I was about to say part 7 didn't really have time travel shenanigans. But then it's
But
like,
that's
wait,
not true.
right, because Dio shows up and Ringo Rodigan has his stuff too, which is still one of the best side fights in all of JoJo.
Yeah, so Ringo I would have excused as a side fight, but once Dio shows up again for the final battle, nope. Even part 7.
Even part 7. Dio. Alright, so back to part 8. There isn't anything to sort of tie everything together, especially towards the end. Because Radio Gaga, while it's a pretty decent side story, doesn't really help the current story, if you get me. Um, it doesn't.
No, I was saying that myself. I agree with you.
Yep. And it's like, what can we do about it? Like, how it just feels bad. Like, why does this matter? What about Holly? Did Mamazuku and Kyo Nijimura die in the fight? Like, die. Well, yes, but also, like, you're telling me that Kyo showed up for 4 pages and then got killed, and that's it. That's all we're supposed to get. That's all we're supposed to enjoy. Of her stand, the awesome stand that whenever you open a door, you get run over by a motorcycle. It's it's frustrating.
Like, so the final chapters of the story, I remember people were making jokes about it that were pretty funny. Like, after the main villain is defeated, after Toru is defeated, Saruki is healed, the curse on the Higashikata household is lifted, and then suddenly we just go like 40 years earlier.
Hey, you guys like Joseph
Lucy's
Joestar? Here's Joseph Joestar.
Yeah,
What about
Lu- Lucy Steele from Part 7 shows up out of nowhere and says, I am here to investigate a field. Hey, you, random person, who's actually Joseph Joestar. Help me out. Then she's eaten by a guardrail, and then Joseph rescues her, and then we cut back to the crescent. You could cut out the entire section, and nothing would change about the story. Like,
Yep.
so here's the thing, like from the JoJo reviewers and people who I've heard, the consensus seems to be that everybody was happy that it was there because we got to meet, alt universe Joseph, and that's fine. Uh, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that we got to meet alt universe Joseph too, but at the same time, this strikes me as a case of kill your darlings. Where, like, okay, so on one hand, I get that we want to meet Joseph Joestar, but on the other hand, did we seriously need this chapter now? Like, would I feel like it could have survived with you taking it out?
It so
All
the
right, so
so the
by
only
the way,
hmm?
I'm reading quotes from Iraqi right now, and they're hysterical. But finish what you're saying.
So like the only thing it did besides introduce the characters was it basically close the loop around the mysterious Rokakaka fruit. Turns out, almost 100 years ago, it was Toru. Toru was there. He had um, he was harvesting the Lokakaka to take to New Guinea to experiment with it. I guess I don't know, but he was there. All right, and it makes kind of no sense. It didn't need to happen because we always assumed that hey, Toru probably got his hands on it some way, somehow, and it doesn't really need to go all that crazy. But he did. He explained it, and we've got it now. Okay, so what do we do with it? Like, can we do anything with it? Well, kind of no. Like, that's the thing. Like, we can't do anything with these parts of the stories. They're just there, and it means kind of nothing. Like, that wasn't the question we wanted asked. The question we wanted to ask was that something like, can Holly be saved? Or what is the secret of the fella from the flashback, or why is Carrera acting so shady, like in any number of things. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on. Like what was Yoshikage Kira up to? Because sometimes he acts like he's only doing benevolent things, but other times he makes a man chew off his own fingers with a philosophical question. It's the stuff that goes on there, even though in its individual pieces, is perfectly fine for JoJo. It is JoJo, and it is good JoJo, and so on and so forth. Together, in the context of the story, in the context of all the things that are going on, doesn't bring us anywhere. Doesn't give us anything, and it's just kind of like, however good the story is, we're still stuck on the fact that we don't know what Johnny Joestar was doing in Japan and where the corpse went. The corpse is under a hill in Japan. It's implied to be the in the under the foundation of the Yoshikage household. But then again, it establishes in 1941 or whatever that wait, when did Johnny die? Look up when Johnny died. What year? Because Araki's
I'll look
probably
it up.
said, yeah, since you got the thing on. But it doesn't help. That's the thing. It's not necessary to the story compared to all the other things. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. You can't always let your fans dictate what you want. Honestly, the fans don't want what's best for the story. They want what they want, which is hey, that's what the fan is supposed to do. But you can't like establish doctrine on it or anything like that for your story because the fan doesn't really know what makes a good story compared to you, the author, who I hope has been studying and paying attention and making good decisions all this time. I mean, I hope you have. It'd be a real shame if you didn't.
Hold on, I'm trying to find the death day.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1872.
Right. And we don't think he died in like. So, like, did he die before 1940 or not? Is what I'm looking for. Where does my character go? Oh, there it is. So it's like, yeah, okay. So it explains that the devil's. So in part 7, it was explained that the devil's palm, and
He
reiteration.
dies in 1901 at the age of 29.
Okay, so the timeline makes sense. Good. So it's like the corpse of Jesus Christ, which gives stands for at random, basically, to people who trespass on Native American soil. Well, that was at least true in America. Um, is now in Japan, is now in the shrine near where he died. But it doesn't come up, even though it's explicitly the reason for all this. There's no explanation for the bite marks other than maybe the corpse did it. It's been 100 years and more since it was sitting there. Like what's going on with it? Like there's in this continuing series, there's more things that are that are just kind of left open or not given any reasoning for it, even though everyone was assured that it was very important. You have to pay attention to it. Like, the frustration just never ends with some of these things. And even though the majority of it is very good, it just isn't. It's one of those things where, like, the things that aren't put together well just aren't put together well, and it just hurts because it's more frustrating because he's a good author, and good authors can do worse than a bad author who doesn't know what they're doing. Because at the very least, you can go like, yeah, that was terrible. Why did you have a sex scene in Zero G while the Vorlons are invading and bombing the place? You know, that's inappropriate. Don't do that. What's wrong with you? You know, like, but then it's like with a good author, it's like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, and it makes everything behind it bad, but it's also kind of good when you take it out of context. Ooh.
So, like I said, for me, the problem is even less Toru. Like, Toru is a problem himself. What really baffles me about this and bothers me the most about it is that Part 8 had a villain set up.
Yep.
Who would have been good. And all of the pieces were in place. Honestly, all we really needed at that point was the spark to set the final conflict between the two of them in motion.
Yep.
So,
Which
like,
was there.
why did we not get it?
Like, it's kind of like if I had like a setup between like Sean and Jim, where they're gonna have a fight, and you know, sure, it's kind of a kayfabe fight, but it was gonna be like one of those things where they show off their abilities to one another, and they, you know, have to solve a conflict after they solve their own conflicts. You know, it's a classic trope of, you know, like, you know, Superman versus, I don't know who, you know, just whoever you want. You know, it doesn't matter that Superman.
Well, hero versus hero.
Yeah, hero versus hero. Like, you know, Jobin has been making terrible and immoral choices to save his family, but he's been doing it because he believes it'll save his family. Like, that's a fantastic villain motivation, especially when he's coming across, you know, a hero like Josuke. You know, people would have accepted it too. You know, they're standing there, and like they could have even done a thing where it's like a game of wits, like it was with Endless Calamity, The Wonder of You, where it's like Jobin has been hold on, Jobin has been setting up traps, and he's got like, okay, you know, I can kill you if I get you, but I have to get you, and Gappy has to fight his way through it, or like figure out ways to I don't know, remove the heat from it or something stupid like that. And then he can go beyond because Jobin has also received a power up, you know, from something, 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 something. I don't know. It doesn't matter the actual specifics, but the pieces were there to set it up without issue. Anyway, go for it.
No, I fully agree with you. So, like, where I thought this was going to end until, like, you know, my heart sank and I realized that Toru was actually going to be the final villain. But, like, where I thought it was going was, like, I thought there was going to be a fight between Josuke and Jobin that was going to end with somehow the two of them meeting and coming to some sort of compromise.
Yep.
And the compromise...
a vicious fight, of course.
What was that?
After a vicious fight, of course.
Right. After a vicious fight, you know, you could have that trope where, like, you know, metaphorically, it's like both of them have the guns pointed at each other's heads, and you're waiting for which one's going to shoot first. Or you could have Gappy win the fight, or even, honestly, you could have Jobin win the fight, but then Yasuho show up and possibly say something, you know, all sorts of ways that this could have gone down. Like, there was more than one option here, but I thought that was what was going to happen, and then they were going to compromise. In fact, I even thought there was a possibility that, I think it might have been Eon Star who came up with this idea, and I think it's a good one, that Holly would have sacrificed herself for Tsurugi.
Mm-hmm.
That she would have learned she would have learned what was happening and what was going down. And she would have told Gappy that it was okay if she died to let Tsurugi live. And then you can have an ending where, Josuke is devastated that his mother is dead, but she tells him, it's okay because I'm doing this because I realize that you need family and that they're going to and that these people are going to accept you and love you. And then you could have that ending where he's with the Higashikata family,
Yep.
right? But like that would have been a satisfying conclusion to everything. I think Eon Star came up with that idea, and you know what? Like, as bad as it sounds,
It
and
doesn't sound.
I almost don't like saying this. I honestly like that idea more than what we got. Like, I
Yep.
think that would have been more satisfying than what we got.
Yep.
And it's not that what we got was entirely satisfying. The final scene with Josuke and the Higashikas was pretty touching. Like, I think it was effective. I was kind of moved by it. I thought it was nice. They asked him to pick the cake for Norisuke. Everybody's in tears. Yasuho tears up a little bit as she leaves. Josuke has his hand on Daya's shoulder. It's very nice.
Yep.
But at the same time, it just felt like, there was a villain who had been an antagonist who had been set up this whole arc and just nothing happened with them. And that Holly's plot arc, the resolution is almost a non-resolution. Like it's not an Araki forgot. He does mention it. He brings up Holly. But the thing is that when he brings up Holly, he brings up Holly by saying, "I guess she's dead now," and then that's it. And like Yasuho goes, "Well, aren't there any other fruits?" And he goes, "Well, maybe, but this is the last chapter, so we're not going to talk." And that's it. So it's like that was his whole motivation. That was the reason that he did anything. That
Yep.
was why he was fighting the head doctor. And then he's just like, "I guess my mom is screwed."
And
The end.
now you are exaggerating a little bit. I don't think it
I
was that.
am, yes.
But yes, like Anthony is very much correct on this front. It is kind of a well, can't do it. Oh well, sort of feeling to it. And
The other problem is because it's the final chapter, too, right? Like,
yes,
if it was not the final chapter, then maybe you could get away with something like this. But at this point, it's like, it's going to be resolved because the story's over. So it's like, are there other Rikakakas? Maybe. And I'm like, okay, but why do I care? You're not going to go after them.
yep.
The story's ending.
Unless
And
he
maybe,
decides to go after him or something like that. But it's like, I don't know. I don't think so. Like it just doesn't feel like Araki is willing to do like a weird New Guinea battle tendency or something.
I mean, I would sort of enjoy that. I think that a part Guinea, though, I'm wondering who the JoJo would be. I see people who are, again, like speculating on part 9 is a fool's errand because Araki has given us literally nothing except the title. But with that said, I have seen people saying that it either needs to take place in the past or it needs to take place with like Gappy's child, and I disagree with that because there are all sorts of ways in this universe that you could add another JoJo in there.
Yep.
Uh,
There is a family tree, and Kyo Nishimura could survive. I don't think she's gonna survive because that thing went straight into her brain pan. Like, yeah, she's pretty out there, but like,
Literally, all you need to do is go, "Yeah, they got me a Replica." We
in
didn't
the
see it, but they got it to her,
in
and that would be perfectly plausible.
right in the room full of the Rokakaka that still had unbroken things in it. It was perfectly possible for it to do it. For them to save his sister's life.
Yeah, you could do that. You could just go, "Oh, they thought that was the whole family tree, but actually one of the people pulled a Joseph, and had an affair, and there's a secret JoJo family. Like, it is very easy to pull together another JoJo. And
Yep.
I would welcome that. Like, I think that part 9, that's a direct sequel to part 8, is something that could work. He normally, I mean, Araki tends to not do that. The parts tend to be pretty disconnected.
Well,
In fact, I think that's now that I'm saying that out loud, I think that's an understatement. The parts are completely disconnected.
what are you talking about? They're very connected.
It's like part 4, we stopped the serial killer in Morio. Part 5, Jonathan and Dio's son in Italy takes on the mafia. Then Polnareff shows up.
Yes, Polnareff shows up. Like, what do you define as being connected?
So what I mean by connected is, how about this? The ending of part 1 and the beginning of part 2 basically have nothing to do with each other. Like, they do, but they don't. Cars and Dio are very, 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 very loosely connected. The Pillar Men and the Vampire, nothing to do with each other. What Dio decides to do in part 3 and his plan, and the actions of Cars and the Pillar Men in part 2, nothing to do with each other. Part 4, Yoshikage Kira, nothing to do with Dio and the villains of part 3. The plots
what
are
are you talking
disconnected.
about? No, like the whole thing with Kira and the arrows is that Dio had given a pair of arrows to guys who were living in Morio for some reason. Actually, that's never explained. Actually, I think Okiyasu's father was funding Dio or something, and
Something like that.
and
But no, actually, I am going to defend what I'm saying here. I think that I'm right. So by disconnected, I don't mean that each part has nothing to do with the other. What I mean is that, like, the main plots of each other could effectively work without them. Like, that whole Dio subplot is there, but let's be honest, you could take it out and you could say something along the lines of Morio was grown on the devil's palm, and that's why they have stand abilities, and the story would be basically the same.
no, because several characters receive their stand abilities because of the interference of Kira's father.
Sure, but that doesn't matter.
Yes, it does matter. The reason why people do things matter in stories. If they get random powers and then decide to attack them, there's no reason for it. Maybe if
It's
there was
not a direct continuation of Dio's plan. Yoshikage Kira is just a crazy serial killer. The fact that they got those powers, yeah, that's a thing, but you could change that and the story would still be the story. It's the same with part 8 from part 7. Like, yes, the actions of that people took in part 7 affect part 8, but at the same time, the plot of part 8 is like there is a curse on the Higashikata household that Jobin and then Josuke are trying to break. Except that Josuke is actually not trying to break it at all. He has nothing to do with it. He's trying to cure his mother, but whatever. Actually, come to think of it, that's kind of another problem with Jojolion, isn't it? But whatever. Like, it's connected to the end of part 7, but at the same time, the main plot of part 7 was also, we need to stop Funny Valentine from controlling the corpse cards, because if he gets them, he's going to spread, bad luck to the rest of the world.
but America will never experience disaster.
That too. Point is, that was the reason that you need to stop Funny Valentine. Part
Right.
8 and the curse and all of that is a separate plot. Like, it's not
Sure.
a direct...
But like,
It's not a direct sequel in the sense it's continuing the same story. It's a different story.
yes, but I'm saying that okay, I think we just have different definitions on this because I am perfectly satisfied with the connection between part 7 and part 8 and so on and so forth. Of course the story's done. The story was done. Valentine
Oh, no. I'm not criticizing it. I'm satisfied with it.
Right.
I just think that, yeah, they're separate stories. Like I don't think of it as the continue. I guess what I'm trying to say is I do not think of JoJo's as the continuation of one story. People will say that it is, but I don't buy it. It's not the continuation of one story. Each part is a completely different story.
Yep.
They are connected in some ways, but ultimately they are their own stories.
Right.
So what I'm saying is a part 9 that is a direct continuation of part 8 would be something new. Like that answered questions that part 8 raised and that followed up on plot lines that part 8 brought up would be something new. They don't really do that in JoJo.
I get that.
They tend to let each part kind of stand on its own merits. But in this case, I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing if you had a part 9 that was a direct continuation of part 8. Yeah, Megabuster Shepard says JoJo is an anthology. Yes, it is. It's an anthology of stories following members of the Joestar bloodline.
Yep.
I wonder if Araki will do another female JoJo. I could dig that. Jolene's great.
Yep.
Araki knows how to write women if he wants to.
If he wants to.
If he decides to. Honestly, a lot of mangaka are like that. I think that sometimes the women they write are, relatively weak. Like Araki had that issue with part 3. Honestly, the women in part 3 are pretty bad. Let's face it, we all know it. Part 2 as well.
There's only like 2 with any lines that show up for more than
Yes.
one arc. Like the rest of them, it's like High Priestess. We don't even see her face, or Maria or whatever her name is, the one with the electric powers that made everyone think Avdol and Joseph were gay. That was actually a pretty funny fight, but whatever.
Yeah, Avdol did have that extremely weird line where he's just like, Polnareff, let's both kiss in this hole. It's male bonding. And I'm like, Avdol, what are you talking about?
He had a near-death experience, and then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna change my character. I'm no longer the mysterious mystic guy. I was kind of superfluous. I'm now the kind of bold friend dude who's happy to be alive and full with vim and vigor.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually thought that the genie fight in part 3 was one of the better ones. And it did a lot I think it did a lot character-wise for Polnareff.
Yeah.
But the end of the fight where they just piss on the stand is really strange.
No,
especially like
they
especially
right
when
into
Avdol
the guy's, breathing hole.
Yeah.
It's
And like especially when Avdol was just like, it's a male bonding, and I'm like, what is Avdol's experience with pissing that makes him think this? I have never in my life have I ever kissed next to another person and thought, finally, we have bonded. Is that a thing that people do? But whatever.
Listen, you just don't look. You don't look. You don't make eye contact. You absolutely do not make eye contact. But otherwise, anything goes. Cross the streams. In fact,
Exactly.
You kind of have to cross the streams, but that's not.
So Megabuster Shepard says, "I want JoJo in space." I agree. They actually did that kind of. It was called like, what was it, Jorge Joestar or something?
Yeah, but
and it was famously terrible.
That was World War One.
I think there was something like I've never read it, but I have heard that it's famously bad, and it was like there were infinite cars that were colonizing other planets or something.
What?
Very strange.
I don't.
FYI, I'm gonna read this quote from Araki because it's hilarious. It's something that was given to me, but I have a swimsuit calendar hanging on the wall of my workplace. In short, I have 12 pictures of girls in bathing suits in my office. Nothing naughty. But anyway, every time the month changes, I have to flip the page to the next girl, and somehow that makes me feel incredibly melancholy. Goodbye, September girl. I guess we'll never meet again. That's how it makes me feel. And then I flip and think, wow, October's not bad either. And that makes me think of how I'm already betraying the September girl. So what I'm trying to say here is that a year goes by really quickly. That's it. That was profound.
It was. Actually, that was something that like I would dealt with when I took on my vacation. It's like I'd be talking about this, and it's like, Ben, you're just giving us non sequiturs, and it's like, but I wasn't giving a non sequitur in my head.
Just a Rocky going on, going, yeah, whenever I flip the month on the calendar, I feel guilty because I'm betraying the girl there. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is, year goes by fast. Just,
Precious.
it reminds me of Oda's stuff in One Piece.
Yeah.
Some of Oda's end of chapter comments in One Piece are absolutely hysterical. Like there was one thing that somebody asked where he goes, Oda Sensei, you said that you like to say the voices loud, write character dialogue. Do you also do that with the girls like Nami? And he responded with, yes, I do. The thing is, I can no longer do it in public because my sexy voice started attracting all of the boys around me. And he goes, so now I just do it in public or in private. And it was just really funny. Anyway, that quote from Araki was extremely bizarre. I would also like to read this quote to you from the electric band, the Gorillas?
Yeah.
I'm going to read a quote here from an interview. It has nothing to do with anything, but I need somebody else to it, and I realize I'm not insane. The guy in the band.
Person to judge that, but keep going.
No, this is important. So he asked, "Should everyone be required to take a gap year at university?" And this is the response of the dude they're interviewing. I don't think people should be forced to do anything. Murdoch, one of the other guys in the band, used to force me to dress up as a fox and run around the woods while he hunted me with a crossbow, which was really scary. Then again, he only did it because he's an animal lover and would never hurt a real fox. That's one of the things I admire about Murdoch. Now that I read that, and you need to live with that knowledge as well.
I mean, it's perfectly reasonable. The man loves animals. His vocalist is slightly lower than an animal. It's as all bands should be. If they don't have if the bass guitarist is supreme, it's inverse. If there's a weak bass guitarist, the bass guitarist is lower than an animal. If the bass guitarist is actually quite strong, well, usually the bass guitarist is the weakest member of any band. That's kind of like the rule. But
Well, yeah, 'cause otherwise you're the guitarist.
Right, exactly. Otherwise, you're useful.
Hey, Lester Shepard says my phone is almost dead. Gotta go. Adios. We are 12 minutes from end time anyway, so yeah. And right now I'm just reading random interviews because I feel like I'm going slowly insane. This is the weirdest interview I have ever read. I don't understand it.
Why are you reading it? What does this have? Oh, I hate this one. Why does this have to do with Jojolion?
It has absolutely nothing to do with it. Just now that I've read it, I just felt like somebody else had to. Somebody else needs to understand when I'm going.
And yet, you won't give me the same benefit when I say, hey, read this thing.
I read things. Sometimes. Maybe. I like the image that you chose for a thumbnail, too.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
It's a nice image. It has nothing at all to do with Jojolion.
It's the three it's the four or whatever main characters of of
Oh, I'm going by the cat image.
oh, it should have changed. I changed it to
It
the
might have.
I changed it to the it was the Stardust Crusaders except as females. Because why not?
Oh, okay. I can see it on my phone. Actually, that's nice drawing.
Yep.
So, FYI, on my phone, that is. I don't think anybody cares about Jojolion.
No, dude. The only reason we got all the subscribers and stuff like that is because I was willing to talk about Trumpton, and the main dude promoted my stuff. Like it's like I understand what wags the dog. I'm not worried about this. It's why I'm going to do more philosophy videos, and I want to see that video about uh, Catholic property rights defended by the church and so on soon, someday.
I can make that.
Yay!
Be interesting. I like the JoJo streams. I honestly think this stream even didn't go badly. Granted, at the end of it, I started talking about nonsense, but, we're at the end of the stream, so.
Yep.
And let's face it, nobody is listening.
We've got like 50 playbacks, my dude.
Oh, man.
Just
Then
because
maybe.
people aren't live or whatever doesn't mean that people aren't listening to our inane ramblings. You gotta have that.
It only
confidence.
got inane at the very end. By the way, in all of our ramblings, I just want to. We've barely mentioned Mamazuku. And Mamazuku is a solid B to A tier Jobro.
He's B tier for me.
He is really good, though.
He's
I'm a big fan.
He's not bad. Like, my problem with him isn't so much that he's like got a bad character or something like that. It's just that he kind of just shows up, and he's in it for like 40 plus chapters, and then he dies at the end, kind of pointlessly. Because,
Well, it's not totally pointless. He's able to teach Josuke the secret of the string that allows him to unlock soft and wet go beyond.
Soft and wet. That's how the song goes.
Oh, I really didn't even know. But yeah, he also has a stand called Doggy Style, which that's weird.
It's a Snoop Dogg reference. Does that help?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Still.
Thing is that his character is actually pretty complete. He almost doesn't grow at all, and it just kind of, I don't know. He just doesn't go anywhere with it. So there's not much to talk about it, as much as we would want to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Well, so Wonder of You manages to kill Ray by talking to his family, which is kind of another connection to Gyro, isn't it?
It is. No, like, we joked about it, but I'm serious. The reason why we know he's a guaranteed Zappelli is because he dies. All Zappellis die within the parts they're introduced. It's a law. It's a Rocky's iron law that all Zappellis must die because he hates Italians for some reason.
I also am going to say that I feel like Mamazuku probably did not have to die, because he dies in the hospital where we know for a fact that there is like Rokakaka medicine.
Yes. Yes, we've established that him and Kyo Nijimura didn't have to die because of the medicine literally strewn around them.
I mean, it's heavily implied that Mamazuku is dead. At the end of the part, he appears in the little dead people montage in Josuke's head. On the other hand, Holly appears there too, and she's probably not dead yet. So, who knows? Maybe he's just sad at all the suffering. I'm thinking that Mamazuku's alive.
No, he lost the left half of his brain, and had a not even a fist size, a head sized hole in his chest.
Okay, but you say that about the brain, but he gives a dying monologue. So, I mean, granted, I suppose it is pretty repetitive, and maybe that's why. But Josuke, the spin. What do you mean the spin? The spin. And it turns
Josuke,
out that's really all he could say.
right? But it's still enough for him to push him to go beyond. Plus, oh wait,
I mean, pretty much. Also, by the way, I'm just gonna say it. Soft and Wet Go Beyond. It made for some nice visuals at times, like when the bubble exploded out and blew Toru to smithereens. But Soft and Wet Go Beyond is the lamest stand evolution.
yeah,
Of all the possibilities for a stand where the power is that it could steal things from other objects, there were so many creative ways you could go with an evolved stand. Like Gold Experience Requiem was an interesting evolved stand. Polnareff's Silver Chariot Requiem was a really interesting evolved stand. But Gappy's evolved stand just blows up. That's it. That's the evolution. And also, it's not affected by the flow of calamity or something.
right.
And, like, I guess that's nice and all, but it's also extremely specifically useful. It is literally only useful if you are fighting Toru, but no other time. I guess Gappy is also like probably the only JoJo who could score a hit on Giorno if he wanted to. You know,
Yep.
Gold Experience Requiem would try and stop the bubble, but it would just cut through and hit him anyway.
Yep.
So I suppose that Gappy takes the most powerful JoJo award from Giorno.
Well, no, just because he counters people doesn't mean that he's the most powerful JoJo. He might be the most powerful JoJo compared to, say, like, like what's that old JoJo joke back in the early days of JoJo intellectualism? Like, can X beat cars? Honestly, yes. What is it? Is it Purple Haze feedback? Purple Haze? Yes, it can beat cars. Is it that Moody Blues? No, but he could probably do it if he had the right, if he was like reversing on Purple Haze. No, it's a stupid
Well, yeah,
little thing.
the joke early on is that cars came from the pre-stand era.
Yep. And he's probably like the strongest non-stand user that the series has. Because, like, he wasn't actually beat by Joseph. He was beaten by being uh, launched into space, where he disappeared forever or whatever. Like went crazy or stopped thinking. So I'm looking at it, and I don't think Holly's dead. She's just in a coma.
Yeah, no, I don't think she's dead quite yet. Mamazuku, probably dead.
Kyo Nijimura probably dead.
Though again, they were both in the hospital with medicine, and also, if Josuke had just stopped to heal them, he literally had as much time as he did because Wonder of You would not have touched him unless he pursued it. So he could have paused the fight at any moment and just helped them, and it would have made no difference. So Josuke, kind of a jerk move. Like, I feel like maybe he should have taken a moment to give them medicine. Like, literally, there was no rush.
You just
Toru does not hurt you if you don't help him, if you don't go after him.
Yep.
Just heal your friends.
All right. Well, I'm done, and we're done talking about JoJo for quite some time. Uh, so
Until part 6 comes out.
we're not even going to really talk about it until some stuff happens with that.
That's fair.
So next time, we'll talk about something more serious.
Deal.
And I'll figure that out. It's probably going to be something to do with philosophy or Trumpton or something. Just because I am working on a lot of different projects for that, and I'm sort of pushing it through. Like I've got a bunch of different things here. Branson is the most developed one, but then we have from science to engineering, which is something I talked about with Jaji, which is about moving from thought ideas and thought creation to practicality, which we are kind of moving through. Another thing about the individual and how they relate to the collective, because like people are saying, "Oh, we can't be tribal, don't be tribal," but it's like we're surrounded by tribes. Uh, we kind of have to start changing how we do it because two people are always stronger than one, all things being equal. The inheritance of generation and something I'm calling defending your own, which will probably be very controversial. But hey, don't worry about that.
Woohoo!
I
I
want
love it.
I want that controversy dollars, Anthony. I want the sweet sweet cash it can be from that comes from being platformed. I want a PragerU slot and my own series of whatever they do that gets them constantly sued for sexual harassment. Like I don't understand why it happens, but hey, why can't I get me some of that
Wait,
sweet
wait,
sweet?
wait. Hold on. I do not want that.
Oh, oh really? So, you
That's a
don't?
very specific thing that you desire and cannot agree.
But Anthony, all the big names get these sexual harassment lawsuits. Why can't I have one too?
No, no. Could be the next Vic Mignonia.
I have no idea what's wrong with these guys. Like it doesn't seem like a week goes by that someone else doesn't get it, or like there's this weird like controversy that people talk about briefly. And I'm not talking about just the harassment stuff that honestly probably never happened for most of these right wing guys who aren't shills specifically. I know that sounds very specific, but like a lefty in a right wing skin suit isn't a right wing guy and doesn't count. Uh, yeah. I guess I'll give up that dream just for you, Anthony. Hmm.
All right, all right. Last question. No, never mind. I solved. I was gonna say, why does my video two comments but only show one? It's because the other comment is spam, and I assume probably porn spam, since for some reason we tend to get that.
Yep. Honestly, before the Trumpton stream took off, uh, our most watched video was that we interacted with, and not like Jason or somebody else interacted with, was the Paprika stream where we talked about Satoshi Kon, and there's these bots that check for porn music for some reason and such like that keeps pinging this episode, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. It literally doesn't have anything in it, and I don't know. I don't know, but it's giving us free views, so I guess I can't complain.
I guess paprika's basically porn.
It is.
All right.
I don't.
Anything
I don't
else?
know.
Anything you want to end? Oh, go
It's
ahead.
so weird. I don't know, dude. Point is that next week we'll do something serious for the anyone who might be listening, uh, and I'll figure
Be
that out then.
fun. I
The
enjoyed the JoJo stream. It will not be the last time we talk about JoJo, but it will be the last time we talk about it for a while.
Probably this year. All right,
Probably.
I'm gonna disconnect the stream, Anthony. We're going into a tunnel. We're going in. Oh, there goes the signal.